Good morning to all. In the lecture series of psychology, today we are going to discuss attention and perception. So, in a market or at any place, you give attention to a specific part of the scene, like depicted in these pictures. So, you focuses on one thing, which is known as attention. By definition, the act of focusing on a specific stimuli from variety of options is known as attention. And the process of attention helps brain to filter and limit the stimuli which we will receive and allowing us to concentrate on what is required or relevant. So attentional process, not attention. The process of attention acts like a tuner, the tuner of radio or television, which focuses on certain type of waves and gives the picture of channel of the radio station. In this lecture, you will be able to explain the nature of functions of attention, describe the process of perception, explain perception of shape and illusions, understand the problem of space perception and cues used in it, describe the factors influencing perception, and describe extrasensory perception. So we are going to cover all these aspects of attention. So starting with attention and its component process. So attentional process has alerting function, selective function, limited capacity channel, and vigilance as a component. What is alerting function? Alerting function is allocation of all available attentional resources. This demonstrates the alerting nature of attention. For example, you can see the picture. The cat is looking at the mouse hole, and the things which are have to be observed is first thing is ears of the cat are turned towards the mouse hole and eyes are fixed on the hole. Muscle in its legs are tensed. So the cat is both physically and mentally prepared to catch the mouse. So this is alerting function. One becomes alerted uh, before applying its focus of attention on some aspects. Second is selective function. Selectivity is the process of concentrating attention on specific stimuli that are currently interesting and disregarding other things in the environment. It is also known as tea party effect or cocktail party effect. What happens in a cocktail party? There is lots of people and lots of noise is there, but the people are divided into groups, or two people are conversing with each other. So they focuses on what they are talking about. And for example, if someone takes the name, someone in the other group in the same party takes the name of that person, the person becomes uh, selectively attentive towards that conversation. So this is the selective function which disregards the other stimulus. Limited capacity channel, what it is? Research has shown that our ability to process external information is limited. So what happens is we can give attention to one task at a time. Instead, we tackle tasks one at a time, a method known as serial processing. But what happens when someone becomes experienced in some part of their life? For example, in driving, if someone is become expertise, so one can handle the driving and conversation with other people in the car at the same time. This is known as automaticity in information processing. The fourth one is vigilance. Focusing on task for extended period is known as vigilance, such as watching a radar screen or keeping an eye by a sniper. The attention leads to perception. When one used to give attention, then uh, he used to perceive something. For example, these simple shapes and the colors in it are perceived by the attention giving person. Is this picture is static or moving? And seems to be moving. What are you seeing in this picture? How many sees baby? How many sees others? Those who cannot see the fetus or baby? Those who cannot see. Raise your hand. Those who cannot see the baby. Simply raise your hand. I'm not able to see. No, look at this. So this is called as illusion. We will learn about illusion later. So regarding the perception, we perceive by the sense organs or senses, which are divided into two. The first one is external and second is internal. External senses are total in 8, known as vision, hearing, smell, taste, touch, warmth, cold and pain. And two are internal, which are known as deep senses such as vestibular and kinesthetic. Vestibular, by virtue of which we maintain our balance, and sense of space by deeper kinesthetic senses. So what is the process? What is the several steps? So first sensory organ receives the stimulation, then stimulation is converted into a neural signal. That signal is transmitted through afferent neuron to a certain part of cerebral cortex, and that leads to perception. For example, for visual information, that is arriving at the occipital lobe. So the chain is selection, organization and interpretation. This perception is the perception which we receive can be affected by our past experiences, knowledge, memory, motivation, cultural background, beliefs and attitude. So you can see that cultural background and beliefs can also alter your perception. Perception of shape. So there are several questions regarding perception of shape in terms of psychology, like how do we recognize shapes? Is our ability to see shapes and form something we are born with or something we learn afterwards? How do we distinguish object from their background? Are there principles that dictate how we organize our perception? What are visual hallucination and why they do occur? So how do we perceive shape? To shape or form refers to part of visual field that are distinguished from surrounding area by clear outlines. So there is a surrounding area, and there is a shape or form is placed in the surrounding area. So Werner showed how we perceive these outlines and their importance in recognizing shape. For a shape to be identified, its outline need to be distinguished enough to define the area known as shape. So what is this question? How do we answer this question? By Gestalt principle or law of organization. So Gestalt psychology, psychologists in Germany, principally Kohler, Kafka and Wertheimer, proposed that brain has an innate capacity for organizing perceptions. So Gestalt basically means is form or configuration or structure. They gave the figure ground relationship, like shape and the background area. So you can see in this image, you can observe two distinct pictures. When you concentrate on the black part, you can see the two people are uh, bent towards each other. When you take the black as a background, what you can see is what you can see is the chess piece. So this illustrates the figure ground relationship. So both can become the figure and ground alternatively. This depends on how do you perceive the picture. So let us know why this occurs, this figure and background relationship. The figure has a defined shape while the background is more formless. The background appears to stretch behind the figure. The figure possesses certain qualities of an object while the background looks like a unshaped material. The figure typically appears in foreground with the background behind it. Background is in the background, in the behind the picture. The figure generally more striking, significant, and easier to recall. So this is figure ground relationship. Now the determinants of figure ground organization. There are law of perceptual organization, which includes law of proximity, similarity, continuity or good continuation, closure, common fate, and pregnance. So what is proximity? The law of proximity explains that we tend to see things that are close together as a part of same group. So you can see that there are some dots and separated by a and 6 dots are separated by a space from other 9 dots. So you can perceive these 6 dots as a one group, one figure, and 9 dots as a another figure. So our brain naturally combine larger elements to help us understand them more easily. Similarly, law of similarity. The principle suggests that we tend to group similar stimuli together. For example, in first figure, uh, you can organize the black circles in the same group and whites in the other. And in the second picture, you can organize the squares in a one group and triangles in a one another, and the circles in another group. So this applies in the daily situations also. Like a good illustration of this is a cricket match where we group players according to the color of their jersey, or and in the armed forces also, certain armed force has certain kind of dress or certain pattern of texture and printing is there on their dress, so they can be figured out by the pattern of similarity. Law of continuity or good continuation. In the law of continuity describes how we naturally see shapes as continuous rather than individual parts. You can see that there are dots in the black color and red color. You can, but the dots are in itself are single dots, but you can imagine as a line when the dots are placed in the vicinity. You can perceive this thing as a line. In the second example also, law of closure. Closure means this should not be mistaken for law of proximity. Proximity means the figures with the something which are nearer to each other. And what is closure? We tend to see stimuli as a complete shape. Even some parts are missing, like in these figures, like in the panda, the outline is not complete. Then also we can perceive that this is panda, the second figure is dog, and other. Law of common fate explains how we perceive things that are moving together in a same direction at the same speed as being part of a group. So birds are individual, but we can see all together them as a one figure. Law of Pragnas is also known as good figure. The principle also called as law of good figure. And according to this principle, out of all possible ways of grouping stimuli, we tend to group stimuli in a simplest and stable phase. So the figure are organized so that looks like a good figure, like logos of the company, and you can see the logo of Olympic. So these are the good figure. Now coming to the illusion, illusions are misinterpretation or misperception resulting from sensory information, also known as false perception. And you must have experienced moon illusion. What is moon illusion is when you see the moon at horizon, you can perceive the moon as a bigger in size rather than when it is up towards far from the horizon. The distance of moon is same, but you are perceiving it as a different shape, different size. The possible explanation for moon illusion involves the connection between size and the distance. You can see the three pictures when the moon is uh, seen against a reference figure. For example, horizon. Horizon is a reference figure. You can perceive the moon as a nearer uh, picture. So in the second figure, it is against behind the background of a tree. So one can perceive the moon is placed at a nearer distance. In the third picture, you can see the moon in red color, which is near to the surface of the earth, seems bigger, while the white moon seems to be a smaller one. These illusions also happens in geometric figures, and the most common one is Muller line illusion, which is depicted in the first figure. You can see the picture, the above and the below, the line below are of the same length, but seems to be different length because of this illusionary effect. In the second figure, known as vertical horizontal illusion, the vertical line seems to be bigger than the base, but perpendicular seems to be bigger than the base, but both the lines are equal in length. Similarly, in the penzo illusion, both the black lines are similar in length. Perception of space. So perception of space encompasses our understanding of size and distance. When we perceive something in space like this table, you are perceiving the distance and depth of this table. So depth and distance are important when these are represented on two-dimensional surface. So how we perceive these two-dimensional figure as a three-dimensional. So it is talking about the perception of space. So this question leads to an inquiry: how do we interpret three-dimensional environment from a two-dimensional image? In other words, how do we perceive depth and distance? Perception of space is possible because of various cues available to us. And what are those cues? We will learn next in the slides. So first we go through the cues. We have to learn about the distance, depth and size in terms of perception of some object in the space. So there is a in terms of distance, there is a two kind of distance: the actual distance between the observer and the object, like this furniture. There is an actual distance and there is a perceived distance which you are perceiving the distance. The actual distance may be 3 meters and you may perceive that the distance of that object is 2.5 meters or 3.5 meters. So this is perceived distance. Similarly, there is a perceived depth of the object and perceived size of the object, which is not the actual size or actual depth and distance of the object. So after distance, depth and size, we will move on to the cues. There are three types of cues. One is non-visual cues. One is non-visual cues. Second one is binocular, and third one is monocular cues. So in non-visual cues, if you are looking at a picture, you are perceiving an object, and what you are perceiving are visible cues. The non-visual cues are lies in your the mechanism of your eyes, like accommodation and convergence. Accommodation refers to process by which eye adjusts its focus, analogous to focusing mechanism of a camera. The ciliary muscles are responsible for modifying the shape of the lens and allowing it to focus on both distant and nearby objects. And by mechanism of convergence, as you read the letter in the printed line, your eye converge on the uh, words or letter on the paper. So this is convergence, by virtue of which we perceive the object in space, which are non-visual cues. Binocular cues can be understood by uh, as it arises directly from the retinal image. So when you perceive the image of an object that falls onto your retina, and we have two eyeballs and two retinas. So actually there are double image, and which is further processed into single image, and that creates a sense of distance, shape and depth of the object. This is binocular cues, and can be understood by double image is formed in the two eyeballs. So binocular disparity, what is the disparity? When objects are positioned closer to or farther away from the fixation point, they cast their retinal image on non-corresponding or disparate region of the two retinas. The extent of binocular disparity increases with the distance of the object from fixation points. This retinal disparity serves as a potential indicator of object distance from fixation point. For example, there are two objects, and one is placed at nearer to you and one is farther away. So this is binocular disparity. This is corrected by our brain, and that leads to perception of depth of the objects in the space. Monocular cues are referred to as pictorial cues by means of picture, provide depth information similar to that which can be observed in photographs and paintings. And this is used frequently by artists. These monocular cues are interposition, aerial perspective, linear perspective, light and shadows, familiar size, texture and density gradient. What are these? We will look at it. This is the monocular cues. Interposition. When an object A partially obstructs another object B, the obstructed object is perceived to be at greater distance than the object that is causing the obstruction. So, in this picture, you can see that the triangle is seems nearer to you, and the square one is farthest from the all figures. And this perceptual cue emerges early in the childhood. This is the aerial perspective. When observing urban architecture, nearby structures appear more distinct with their outlines sharply defined in contrast to those that are farther away, which appear blurred and indistinct. The distant building, trees and other objects are perceived as hazy when compared to the clarity of those that are closer. So it's obvious thing. This is linear perspective. As objects converge toward a specific point in your retinal image, it is observed that greater the distance between two objects in the visual field, the more they seem to be in proximity to each other. So you can understand by this picture, the figure which are farther away seems to be more closer than the trees are nearer to the visual field. Light and shadows. The shadows produced by one object on another can reveal which object is positioned at a greater distance. You can see that the ball on the left side seems to be more positioned more greater distance from the surface. So this is light and shadow effect. Familiar size. So this can be understand by if your friend heights allow you to estimate the distance at which he is positioned. This means if you uh, well words with a person and you know to that person very closely, and you meet daily one of your friend, so you have an idea of his height and the girth and the physical aspect of the body, so you can make out how far he is standing by virtue of your familiarity with the size. Texture density gradient, you can observe a plowed field में आप खुदाई किया हुआ खेत है ना, गुड़ाई किया हुआ खेत देखेंगे. The texture of soil appears coarse at close range, and while it becomes increasingly smooth as one gauges further. So the nearer field seems to be coarse, will perceived as a coarse, and the farther one is seems smooth. So this is texture density gradient, and these are the monocular cues. Now some factors must influence the perception. As we have discussed earlier, that experience, past experience, socio-cultural environment, the beliefs, the attitude can alter the perception. So these are divided into three: context and set effects, needs and motives, social and cultural factors. In the terms of context, a specific stimulus can elicit vastly different interpretation depending on the surrounding context. For example, when someone say eel is moving in a noisy environment, so can we misinterpret eel as a wheel. So moving is the context, so one can interpret that someone has said wheel instead of eel. So eel is moving is perceived as a wheel is moving. The similar example, peel the orange. If someone say peel the orange in a noisy environment, can be perceived as peel the orange, because orange is the context. So in both the cases, eel is perceived as a wheel in first case and peel in the second case. Set effects. Perceptual set can also influence our perception. In general, our education, social and cultural experiences along with our beliefs significantly influence our perception. For example, those individuals with strong convictions regarding God and religion may view temple as a source of peace, love, comfort, affection and fulfillment. While those who do not believe, like atheist people also live here, so they may not found these connection with the temple. Likewise, stereotypes like broad assumption that about a particular groups, as uh, we have lots of people living in community with different background. So we make a broad assumption about them and shape our initial perception of people we encounter for the first time by virtue of that broad assumption of particular group. Need and motives also plays a role. The personal factors such as need, emotion, value, personality trait significantly shape our perception. For example, two men, one experiencing hunger and the other thirst, enter a restaurant where the waiter present them with menus to place their order. Upon a brief examination, the hungry individual is more likely to notice food items on the menu, while the thirsty individual focuses on the beverages option. So this also depends on our need and emotions, values and personality traits. Social and cultural factors. Perceptual learning and development occur within the social cultural context. We used to learn from our socio-cultural backgrounds, and researches indicates that, for example, individuals from African communities residing in dense forest environment exhibit a strong illusionary effect in the vertical horizontal figure because of the kind of environment they used to live. While Western urban population shows a greater susceptibility to Muller layer figures. These variations can be attributed to distinct cultural experiences of each group. Now coming to the extrasensory perception. Extrasensory perception which operates independently of sensory input. So there is no role of sensory input. Extrasensory perception entails the ability to perceive without physical stimulation. For example, in case of telepathy, clairvoyance and telekinesis. What is telepathy? Involves the transmission of thought between individuals located at different distances by no means of physical stimulations or physical transmissions. Clairvoyance refers to ability to perceive objects, events without relying on the sense. Telekinesis is capacity to manipulate object without physical contact. कैपेसिटी टू मैनिपुलेट ऑब्जेक्ट्स विदाउट फिजिकल कॉन्टैक्ट। सलमान खान की मूवी देखी थी, इसमें पहाड़ हिला देता है वो, टेलीकाइनेसिस कैन बी रिलेटेड टू दैट। So extrasensory perception is often regarded as parapsychological phenomena, and psychologists adhering to a scientific approach typically discard the validity of extrasensory perception of phenomena. So in the conclusion, attention is a crucial element in the process of perception. It serves four primary functions: alertive function, selective function, limited capacity channel, and vigilance. Our perception of reality is shaped by various factors, including past experience, knowledge, memory, motivation, cultural background. Gestalt psychologist in Germany posits that the brain possesses an inherent ability to organize perception, and there are laws of organization. The laws include good form, proximity, similarity, closure. We have access to three categories of cues known as non-visual cues, binocular cues, and monocular cues. Additionally, several factors influence our perceptions, such as context insights, needs and motivations, as well as sociocultural influences. Thank you.